very first place. Now, if you can think back in your history, when the New World was discovered, everybody in Europe wanted a piece of the action. And they were sending all kinds of soldiers and explorers over here to lay claim to this new world. Every time they came to a river, they'd stick their flag in the river and they'd say, I claim all things drained by this river to be ours. Well, even the dumbest explorer knew if you didn't have a physical presence by your flag, the next guy would come and throw your flag away and stick his own in. So the French had done a lot of exploring on this area. They were already up in Canada. The English were on the eastern seaboard. The Spanish were in South and Central America. The race was on. The French thought, since they knew the source of the Mississippi River, if they could get to the mouth of the river and build a fort, they could control all the land in between. Now, they didn't know exactly how much that was, but they knew it was going to be a lot of land. So, they sent two young French explorers, brothers by the name of Iberville and Bienville. Sent them here and tried to, down the English seaboard, down into the Gulf of Mexico to find the mouth of the river. Well, they couldn't actually find the mouth of the river because, as we know today, the mouth of the river isn't one entry, it's a big, wide delta. So every time they tried to go up something, it petered out, it was not convenient. Very frustrated, they went along the Gulf Coast, they settled the town of Biloxi and Mobile. It's older than New Orleans. I don't know if you know that. Now, from there, they started exploring out. Bienville was very good at making friends with the Indians and learning some of their languages. And so from them, he learned a back way to get here. What they did was come from our lake regions, have you heard, Lake Pontchartrain, all of that, came through there down a very long bayou, which he named Bayou St. John, after his patron saint, and lo and behold, he comes out here. Now, I hope you see what he saw, but he gets here, he sees the river makes a big bend here, and you can't really see it too well from here, but it makes another big bend there. Right off the bat, he says, I can defend this spot because I can see the ships coming and going. And then he discovered in the middle here, it was 200 feet deep. That's really deep for a river. But it meant that ocean-going vessels could come this far up the river to dock, or even down the river and going out to the Gulf. And so this is where he decided the fort should be. Now, word went back and forth to France, and unfortunately, by the time this decision was made, Louis XIV, who had sent him on this mission, was now dead. And the Duc d'Orleans was the regent in France. And the Duc I can't talk this morning. Orleans said, hey, I don't have any money. Louis's been fighting wars all over Europe. We're broke. He said, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a land grant. I'm going to give you one. I'm going to give you one, you one, and you one. And I got this company, the East Indian Company. They're going to handle all this. I'm going to send you to the New World, and it's going to be a colony. And that is how we got to the colony. And that's why we're New Orleans and not Louisiana. Louisiana, the whole territory, but New Orleans for the Duc d'Orleans. Okay? Does that make sense? All right? So, this is how the city gets its name, and this is how it starts. Now, the city doesn't grow very quickly, but it starts growing slowly. What the French were doing, were very busy. Nobody wanted to come here. They kept saying, oh, the streets are paved with gold, and of course, there weren't even any streets. They had a program of emptying their prisons that would send you over here. If you were out of work for 3 days, you could come to the colonies. You wouldn't go to debtor's prison, all this kind of stuff. So you can imagine the kind of people who were settling here, plus those people who got land grants who weren't going to do anything except make some money. So it was growing very, very slowly. Well, at the same time that the French were doing this, they were embroiled in a war with England, which we call the French and Indian War. And I haven't a clue how the Indians got into it, because it was the French and the English who were in the war. Unfortunately, the French lost. And one of their punishments was they had to give up all of their colonies in North America. Now, the first Spanish ship sails into the harbor, which is right here. Look at this boat being towed out. You can tell it's empty because see how high it's going? Notice they go right down the center, because that's where today they dredge it to keep it that deep. So it's going right down the center.
That's amazing.
Anyhow, the ship comes in, guy gets off, he says, "Hey, I'm your new governor." And we went, "You're not our new governor, we're French." And we put him back in a ship. And you know, he took it real lightly, went right off and got a huge military force under a gentleman by the name of O'Reilly. He was a Spanish mercenary. Comes back with a big fleet, gathers up all the men he can find, puts them in the square, shoots them dead, and now we're Spanish. Okay? So let's go look what happens over here after this. All right? Any questions so far?
Now this is downriver, you said?
This is downriver. This is upriver. Okay? You can see where we can't tell north and south, because this is the West Bank over here. That is New Orleans, still a part of the city. You're really confused. Go have breakfast tomorrow at Cafe Du Monde and watch the sun come up over the West Bank. Okay? Because that's the West Bank. You're on the East Bank. Okay? Right. We're going to go, this is Riverside. So you can clear across the city. They did as they usually do. They would put up a church. Remember, church and state are one. Nobody can be here who isn't Catholic. You understand that, don't you? So everybody has to be Catholic. They put up a church, and then they put up buildings on either side. And under the French, they're simple buildings made out of wood. The building on this side was usually what I call for public things like the jail barracks, army barracks, that kind of thing. And on the other side for the functionaries of the church. If you go to any colonial city, it still remains in the New World. This is the kind of configuration that you see. This is a private tour.
Oh, good. So what am I supposed to do?
So, the Spanish come, they undertake this community. They're not making a lot of money. They're still trying to figure out what's going to grow here, how they can turn a profit out of this colony. They're really good administrators. But unfortunately, in 1788, we had a very disastrous fire. And it burned just about everything that went this way. And no sooner were they recovering from that, we had another fire that went going this way. All right? So, the Spanish were not real interested in rebuilding. They said this was not a real profitable. However, there was a gentleman who had come with the Spanish. Here's the flash. His name was Don Jose Alamos. Don Jose ended up owning lots of property, which is what now the French Quarter. And he said, I'll tell you what. He said, I want you to rebuild the church. The church, this building, and this building. I'll pay for it. I'll do it. They said, fine, what do you want in return? He said, all I want is to be buried in it. And I'd like you to say Mass for me on a regular basis. They said, done and done. So the church is rebuilt. It's a flat top Spanish building. All right? People bring their methods with them from wherever they come from. Spanish flat top roofs. In Spain, they use those flat top roofs. It's cooler in the evening. They like to dine up there, sometimes sleep up there. New Orleans, it doesn't work too well. Here it gets hotter at night, it rains too much, and the mosquitoes carry you away. But anyway, the church is built a flat top building. This building over here, we call the Cabildo. It's also a flat top building. Cabildo in Spanish means seat of government. Okay? Then, unfortunately, Don Jose ups and dies. They have a nice mass for him. He's buried in the church. And by the way, if you're down here on your own and you want to go in the church, it's quite beautiful. And you can walk right up to the front and you can see where he's buried. He's still there, and they still say mass for him. He didn't get up and leave. His wife, who was much younger than he was, and they had one very young daughter, said, "Hey, he's dead. He's buried. You're saying mass for him. I'm leaving. I'm going to France, where I have lots of property, and I'm taking my daughter." And so off she goes with her daughter. Whereas this building is over here, and we still call it the Presbytere, but it was never used as such. It wasn't even built until after 1803, when we're part of the United States. Okay, so both of these today are state museums. All right, the State Museum. This one is the History Museum, all the way from the beginning to the end, and this one over here is changing exhibits. They have one on Katrina now, and some other things here, and they're open to the public. Okay, now want to go into the square. We'll get more of the history of John Alamaster's family and how the square got to that. Okay, now. Most story.
That's funny one too.
Yeah, sorry, this one. Someone, yeah, he's a man, dress. Another one. His dress? Oh.
Let's keep it all fair and share, please. No charge, all tips.
Okay.
Oh,